minutes and the financials, so we'll, if we get a quorum by the time the meeting ends, so we can move back and take an approval on that. But officially call to order the Wednesday, September 24, 2 p.m. meeting of the Central Virginia Regional Housing Pool Partnership. So it's good to see everybody. I think the last time we were online, so we haven't seen each other in person in a while, I guess, or since March. But we've got a good session, I think, lined up today. We may have to, when you look at the agenda, Luis, under number 4 is coming right out of the meeting. He'll be joining us online so we can make the 3 o'clock. Is he going to be able to make it?
He may actually be able to make it in person.
Okay.
So we'll see.
So we just may have to do an adjustment there too, to give Luis a little time if needed for his presentation and move on to other items if necessary. So we'll go ahead and do the roll call of who's here, please.
Ned Galloway,
I'm here.
Michael Payne, Bree Murray Key,
Here.
John McCluskey, Rachel Jones, Jesse Rutherford, Diana McKeel,
Here.
Margaret Claire,
Here.
Keith Smith,
I'm here. Once I set my hearing aids.
Ruth Rourke, Fitzgerald Barnes, Emily Dreyfus,
Here.
Kurt Keyseeker, here, Alice Butcher,
Here.
Peter Holman, Cameron Moore, Dan Rosenzweig, here, Shayla Washington.
You might get on online.
Okay. Okay. Sunshine Mason, Alice Rauscher,
Here.
Annette Hyde,
Here.
Kim Highland, Dave Norris,
Here.
Luis Viola, and John Sales, although Kathleen is online.
Oh, here.
Someone else online? Let's see.
Greg,
See, Greg is there.
Shayla Washington is online.
Here.
Keisha is online.
We are, let's see, too short of our format. So maybe one.
So once we have a form in person, we need to take it up to allow them to.
If we get there. Very good. And Logan, we've got some new members that we need to have new members that we need to introduce from June or March. Just see it on the agenda. So.
I'm not sure we do have any new members.
Great. Then we'll move on to comments from the public. Is there anyone online or in person who wishes to give public comment today? Awesome. Close public comment and go to, well, we have to move past the consent agenda. Are there any changes though to those minutes? We might as well address that if there are.
I was marked present at the June 25th. I've already finished.
And is there any questions about, or any comments about the financials that we need to
No, just that it's a new fiscal year and
reset?
it resets. Yeah.
Great. And like I said, if we get a quorum, we'll come back and just take a quick vote on it. So the highlight for today, we've got a couple of presentations lined up under new business, and thrilled to have Mr. McNamara, Chris McNamara from Virginia Housing here today. Chris, I don't know if you want to do any sort of, I think a lot of folks know you, so I don't know if we have to do any formal intro or background, but happy to have you do so, and then we'll kick off.
Yeah, so I do have a presentation, so I'll move up there with. Good afternoon, everyone. For those that don't know me, I am Chris McNamara. I work for Virginia Housing on our strategic housing team in our community outreach division. My focus is on economic development and workforce, middle income housing. So I think that's the main focus of what I'm going to be talking about today. I have been with Virginia Housing for a little over 4 years. Was involved with the PDC grant, didn't get to work with your PDC, but did work with Central Virginia and Central Shenandoah on their projects. So it's on all the calls and everything with that, so knew what you all were doing. I've talked with many of you in the past about different projects you have coming up. Biggest thing I work on is our workforce housing investment program. This was a new program we rolled out last year. So we'll get into a little bit more details on that. Round 2 is coming. I had hoped to be able to tell you when today. If we are not being recorded, I can let them. Okay, we'll let that slip then. So yeah, we'll go over that. I'm going to give you some ideas of things that might be changing in the next round. You can take notes as much as you want on that. We tried to make it easier and more straightforward, so we'll go through all of that. Some of the stuff is things you all know. Housing intersects with everything we all do. This is not news for this group. You all know this, but everything from your health, your education, wealth building, quality of life. The big one is economic development. My previous life, I worked for the state at BDP doing economic development. So a big part of what I was doing was working on these large sites, trying to get them project ready, get people to understand what they were, what they needed, what infrastructure was needed. We never talked about housing, ever. I got my hand slapped actually for talking about housing in meetings and recommending that an old building would be better suited for housing. That building is in Southwest Virginia and is now housing. So I'm always excited about that one. Things have changed though. I spend every day talking to chambers of commerce, EDAs, IDAs, groups like this, people who never really talked about housing before, but are now realizing that it is holding them back. Again, we know this, there is not enough housing on the ground. We've never really picked back up from where we were before 2008, where we were building a lot more homes every year. The recession hit, we lost a lot of tradespeople, we lost a lot of people that were willing to take that risk to build new housing. So things really just stalled out, and even when things have picked back up, it's only a fraction of what it was before. Like this says only about 50% of where we were back in 2008 of how many units we're building each year. So I know it kind of sounds crazy. You look around some of these places and you see cranes everywhere, you see new development being approved, but it's still just nowhere close. And we're not picking up what we need to be doing. The JLARC study that came out 6-7 years ago now said we needed about 200,000 units of affordable housing across the state. So that's not just any level, that's just affordable. Haven't seen the final update to this that DHCD is working on, but I've heard that number is now closer to 350,000. Our population continues to grow, but we're just not building enough. And there's so many reasons for that we all know. Housing prices have gone up. This is not, again, not news. So we're just need to think of new creative ways to tackle this because people are getting left behind in all of our communities across Virginia. I have spent literally the last few weeks have been a roller coaster around the state. I've done Eastern Shore, Southwest, Northern Virginia, Danville, was in Martinsville 2 days ago. Yesterday, I don't know what day it is anymore. The problems are not unique in any region, and that's what's kind of become more interesting. I think the PDC grant kind of got this conversation started that the solutions might look a little different in each region, but they can be adapted. Things that are happening in Southwest, we have partners in Northern Virginia that are asking questions. How can we make that work for us? How can we make things work here in the Charlottesville, Central Virginia region that are happening down in Hampton Roads? Things are happening and things are exciting. There's momentum there. There's partnerships that are ready to happen. And that's really what Virginia Housing and our team specifically wants to do. The way I'm kind of looking at things is from the economic development standpoint, we know what it takes to get a site ready, what it takes to get a building ready. It is not any different to do the same thing for housing. So just some key follow-ups here. Not enough units. Renters are paying too much, so they can't afford to save up for a down payment. The obstacles to getting into a house are just too high. People don't understand them. We got student loans, everything else, medical bills. There's just not, we're not building starter homes anymore. Everything we're building is 4 or 5 bedrooms, 400, 500,000 plus. That's not realistic for a first-time home buyer in most markets and most situations. Not enough labor, materials, costs are still going up. We're hearing it more and more now. Tariffs are coming into play with housing costs, how that's going to work with things. Who would enter this person? Okay, great. And then some other things just on the local level, density restrictions, NIMBYism. How can groups like this work together to tackle NIMBYism? That's not an easy fix, and I'm not going to get up here and say I know the answer, but the more data you have, the more impact you have, kind of the better we could be. I will say I'm working with a very rural locality right now that has not seen any new development in probably 10, 15 years plus. Every time a single new house comes on that they're talking about building, they come out and they shoot it down in every board meeting. They don't want it. In that same meeting, they're complaining that their taxes are going up and that they're not getting any new industry. They're not getting any new restaurants, anything. Things are closing. Their kids don't want to move back. So what we're actually working with them is trying to figure out how to do an impact study so a consultant can run some studies to show, hey, if we don't build any new housing for 10 years, fine. But this is what your taxes are going to do every single year in order for us to keep our roads, keep our schools, keep our police. And then compare that with if we allow 10 new homes a year, 20, 30, whatever it is, to show people, hey, this isn't, we're not talking about building hundreds of thousands of homes in the next 4 years, but let's do something at scale that will help keep those costs down. I think especially rural localities, building hundreds of homes, like I live in Richmond, we hear it all the time. We don't want to be the next Nova. We don't want to be the next wherever. You don't have to be, and that's okay. Figure out what works for you. So just touch a little bit on what we've been doing more and more with economic development across the state. In the past, probably 3 years now, we've started working really, really closely with VDP and DHCD, Department of Housing and Community Development. Specifically, we've always worked really closely with their housing side. A lot of our programs overlap. Now we're more working with their economic development side and community vitality. They change their names a lot. But that's the Go Virginia. We're working really close with them, trying to get them. They don't want to spend money on housing yet, and that's okay. We get that. But what can they do? Big part of what we're talking about is workforce development. They fund a lot of workforce development programs. Can they fund one that's going to be focused on the trades for different reasons? VDP, I get at least probably 2 or 3 emails a week about projects that are looking at Virginia and they're asking about housing. These are site consultants from around the country that are saying, hey, we're interested in this site. What's the housing situation? What's coming online? What studies have been done? I know a big one that was announced recently here in Albemarle. They came to us a few months ago to ask about housing. And luckily the PDC has been on top of that and did the housing study. So there was data ready. So that's just, it's kind of a cool shift that we're seeing. This governor and administration has been very, very focused on job growth and understanding that housing is needed for job growth. There's been some program changes across the state. None of you are in the Tobacco Commission footprint, but they've started doing housing. That is a really cool, different example of a group that said we will never touch housing, that is not in our wheelhouse, that is now shifted. So there's other foundations that are starting to follow suit. Southwest Virginia, there's the Wellspring Foundation. That was like the hospital sales, set up a large endowment. It's been around forever. They've really just focused on workforce development. They are buying up land and setting up a land trust. They're looking at developing their own modular housing plant in Southwest Virginia just to supply for their land trust and their local housing authorities. It's amazing what they're doing. The Harvest Foundation in Martinsville, they're starting to do it. Down the road, Stanton, the Community Foundation of Central Blue Ridge something. They've been the driving force for their housing stud. They did a huge housing summit a couple of years ago and the follow-up for that. So it is really cool. I mentioned chambers of commerce and EDAs, IDAs. I am going to call one thing out to you all in your group. As I look through the roster, there's not a single chamber of commerce or EDA or economic development person on that list. And I think if you're ever looking to add a new member, that could be an interesting group for you.
I'm on the EDA.
You're on.
Yeah.
Okay. The regional economic development group
Yeah,
would be interesting to see.
because I'm in housing,
Right.
right?
Yep. Oh, yeah. VITA is the statewide economic development association. I have stood up a new quarterly call that we're on that's just talking about housing across the state. That is open to anybody. Any one of you can join that call. We had our first one back in November. We had about 150 people join. Not November. That's the next one. Never August. August was. Like I said, I have no idea what day or time it is anymore. Our next one's in November, and we're going to be talking with Henrico and their EDA. The first one we talked with Phil and their IDA and how they got involved with housing. So we're trying to balance it out, urban, rural, suburban, get a little mix of everybody and talk about what they're doing. So what we're really excited about. The Workforce Housing Investment Program. So Governor Youngkin announced this program that we run, we finance at Virginia Housing. For those of you not aware, we are a completely self-sufficient organization. We do not get a single penny from the state or federal taxes. We are buying and selling bonds in the capital markets. So we have some flexibility that other organizations don't, but we have one goal, is just to support housing across Virginia. So this commitment, working with the administration, we've committed $15 million a year for 5 years for a total of $75 million to build middle income housing. Our focus has always been and always will be that lower income. We know that need is there and we know it's growing and we're not taking away. This is a plus up from that. It's not taking away. We didn't cut any programs. When we first announced this, I got some angry calls that how dare you, this isn't what you should be doing. But then we talk it through and can show that, especially in rural areas and some of our secondary markets, this is where the need is huge right now, and addressing this helps address everything else. So like I said, $15 million a year for 5 years. We did our first round. We announced awards back in May. This is supporting new housing development. That can be rental, home ownership. We're not looking at buying existing homes or existing apartments and making them affordable. We want to see something new. That does include adaptive reuse. We got quite a few of those projects this year. Targeting that 80 to 120% AMI. Most of our programs and all of DHCD's programs stop at that 80%. And then you look at what's coming on the market and no one in that 80 to 120 can afford it. Rents are crazy. I know in Richmond, I can speak personally, I could just see what people are charging for rents. I don't know how people do it. So we really are targeting up to that 120. In rural areas where AMIs are a little bit lower, we're going up to 150%. So that does include some of your region. For this first round, we were offering either a grant or a loan subsidy. For any of you who have worked with us in the past, we have our REACH program where we offer a below market rate. Right now, that rate is at a 3.95 instead of market, which is 6.5, 6.7. So that's a huge savings. We'll get into some changes with that. This tied housing opportunities to job announcements. So if you had a job announcement in your region, in the city of Charlottesville, just use that as an example, a company announced they're coming right here to this building. You drove in 30 minutes in any direction from here, and that bubble would be eligible for this fund. Up to $3 million. That doesn't mean for every job announcement we were giving $3 million. We only had 15 million and there was a lot of announcements, but we wanted to see that where housing was going made sense. Got a lot of pushback on that one, the 30-minute time. Making changes. Wanted to see houses that were going to stay affordable for at least 15 years. So for rental, they came to us for financing. They have to submit, they have to stay, submit their rent roll. That process stayed the same. For home ownership, deed restriction, land trust, anything along those lines were eligible. We really left it up to the individual applicant to work with us. Applications came from local government or nonprofits. We wanted to see a partnership between the locality and a developer. So you have a project you're working on, it's going to be 100 homes. We want to see some skin in the game from the locality. That was kind of the big thing that was different about this that confused a lot of people. We don't normally require match for our grants, but for this program we did. And that was kind of to offset the questions about whether we should focus on this middle income or not. The match requirement is, I think, pretty generous. It's based on distress level, which also confused a lot of people because the housing community doesn't really use distress level, economic development does. Excuse me. At distress level, the way that works, every year it is updated by DHCD based on poverty level and unemployment. So if you have a community that your poverty level and your unemployment rates are higher than the state average, you're considered double distressed. One of those is higher, the other is not. You're single. If they're both below the state average, you're not distressed. Our match requirements were directly tied to that. So a non-distressed community was a 1-to-1 match. For every dollar we gave you, you had to put in $1. Double distressed, it was 1 to 2, 1 to 3. Double distress was 1 to 4. And we were very, very flexible with what that match looked like. We had a couple localities that put in donated land. Some did tax abatements, some were waiving tap fees, permitting fees. One locality put actual cash into the deal. One locality, they put in a new turning lane with their own budget. Another locality did a huge water system update. And that water update wasn't just for this one project, but it directly benefited this one. So we were able to show that relationship and that financial contribution. So we were really, really flexible with that. And we're going to continue to be. We've got it really defined for this next round of what each match will look like. Scoring was not the greatest, I will be honest. I designed the program and it wasn't the greatest the first round. It wasn't really clear what each one was, what was defined as what. We're changing that. It's going to be, you should know what you're going to score when you submit your application this year. That's going to help us. So these were our first 10 projects. You can see we did go above the 15 million. We had some good projects that we wanted to get a geographic spread. So we wanted to make sure that we could spread this around as much as possible. There was a good mix of rental and home ownership and good use of adaptive reuse and new construction. All of these projects, with the exception of South Boston, are moving forward and are ready to go or under construction. South Boston is changing. You saw the news last week. Hitachi Energy announced that they were putting in an additional 800 jobs. So that project's actually shifting. So instead of doing 40 homeownership units, they're now doing about 100 rental units. So we're very excited about that. The homeownership numbers just, they weren't adding up right anyway. So the rental just makes a lot more sense. As far as size goes, smallest project was 10 units down in Whitfield. Largest, Washington County, doing 268 homes. That is part of a bigger project that's about 350 homes. The other ones are all going to be market rate. They are really focused on their teachers, some other, the fire department and the police station. Those were all, they were really, really focused. We wanted to see some creativity here. So the match was obviously one thing, but we also wanted to see employer involvement. So some of these, think here, South Boston, Hitachi Energy is hosting a housing fair for their new employees, where on site they're going to have all the resources come in, they're going to share those. So it's a great opportunity, whether they're going to live here or not, to get housing education, to learn about down payment programs, to learn about lending options. What else we got? Winchester, they used a new Publix as part of their program. Everyone who gets hired there is going to get a whole folder of opportunity for housing resources. Danville, the casino, is offering housing education to every one of their employees. Just kind of some different ideas. Bristol, the casino down there as well, is also going to offer some housing education. Those two, we really tried to get the casinos to put in money towards the housing, but that didn't work. They weren't so into that because they are having such an issue right now where they are busing employees back and forth every day. For Danville, they're living in Greensboro. They have a bus that goes back and forth every single day that the casino's paying for. Just save that money and put it in here. So, looking ahead to round two. I had two different versions of this slideshow ready to go this morning because I was supposed to have a 1 o'clock call that got pushed, but we didn't. So these are all proposed changes to the program for next year. And you can see we've changed a couple things. I realized that I have in here Louisa and Orange are now included. They were included last year as well, so that doesn't change anything. Big thing for that, we're changing the drive time for rural localities. So if a project is located, if an economic development project is announced in a rural locality, instead of 30 minutes, we're going to look at a 45-minute circle. So that will help. If a project announces in one of those counties, something in Charlottesville could now potentially qualify for this funding. We are doing away with the requirement for projects to use our financing. The rate subsidy got very confusing. There was a whole calculation. For every $100,000 of award, you were eligible for $370,000 financed at a 3.95. I explained that probably close to 100 times in the 6 months since we announced this thing, because it doesn't make sense. So we're trying to get rid of that and make it easier. If a project wants to use a rate subsidy, we will gladly work with them and we will gladly finance the project. Any one of these are going to be eligible to finance with us. But in some instances, it makes more sense to fund with a local private or local community bank. If they can give you a better rate than we can, or they can work better with you on terms, go for it. The scoring rubric, I said, will be definitely more clearly outlined. And then we're going to give more points for things like innovation, sustainability. So if you are standing up a program like a revolving loan fund, the two in Southwest, Washington County and Bristol, the Bristol project got $480,000 and they're building 48 townhomes. Just by doing it in phases and just keeping that money going. And he's already identified another 24 he wants to use that same fund for. So things like that, where it's making a big impact, we want to see. We're definitely open to any kind of ideas, anything creative. The scoring sheet, there's points on there now for things like hiring apprentices or interns to work on a project. We were trying to address some other issues, like let's get people excited about working in this. The employer involvement, we would love to see the employer come in and actually put funds into a project. We are realistic that that is not going to happen with fair housing laws. It's very, very concerning. It raises a lot of red flags. If I was an employer, I owned a big company and I'm putting money into a deal in my community, I'd want to guarantee that my employees can live there. And that's a fair housing violation. So I'm not going to do that. But thinking of other creative ways to do it. Maybe an employer has extra land. The Harrisonburg region, there's a group of employers that are trying to get together to advocate for housing together. So they're going to show up, the CEOs of these companies are going to show up to board meetings and actually speak well about projects and speak of the importance of them. Trying to think of the other big changes. This all hopefully will be announced in the next 2 weeks, where you'll be able to know everything. But we are really excited. So I want to touch on this. Since this program came out, developers from around the country have taken notice. I was at a meeting or conference in DC a couple weeks ago speaking about this program. There are only 6 or 7 states that have a program similar to this. Everyone does it differently. There's different things that work, different things that don't work. But people are taking notice of this and developers are taking notice of this. I know a couple of your localities have had conversations with a man named Joe. I'm going to butcher his last name. He's from New York. He heard about this program. His son is a volunteer firefighter in Albemarle, I believe, and is now very interested in this region. and building a community in this region of workforce housing. Got him, I have a group, another group out of Northern Virginia, New York, that are very interested in developing some kind of rental community. They've done it in Florida, which has a program similar to this, and one in Connecticut they've worked on. People are paying attention, but they want to see that land is ready to go and projects are ready to go. I know many of you have used our grants before. It's a great opportunity to use these grants to get sites, get the studies done that you need to do, be able to move forward, move quickly on projects, and to be able to show developers what you have. Right now, right down 29, we're working with Alta Vista. The EDA there bought about a 150-acre farm right outside of the town, and they are treating that like an economic development project. They've done all their due diligence, they've done all their site planning, they've had a whole development plan developed, ready to go. Invited developers in to tour the property, tour the land, see what it is, and then they're going through the rezoning now. So it's going to be zoned correctly when they put out their RFP in January. So they will be ready. That meeting, I went to the developer meeting. They had national builders show up that have never done business in that county or in that part of the state. They had local developers. They had developers from Richmond, DC, all over the place. It gained interest because it was different. They want to see that. They want to see localities be proactive. So my suggestion to all of you, if you have a property that is ready, let's talk. This is one I told them I would do, give a little pitch for them. Clayton Homes, it's a modular housing company. They have launched their own development arm where they will actually come in to a piece of land and actually put the infrastructure in, put the roads in. They have the capacity to do that, and they want to in Virginia. They've never done it in Virginia before. I got a call from them late last week. Do you know any land in any locality in Virginia that would be ready to do this? All they need is at least a quarter-acre lot. Their preference is from like 30 to 40 acres, and they can come in and just build a new neighborhood. If you've never been in a Clayton or a modular home, you can see these pictures here. It doesn't look much different than a regular stick-built home anymore. This isn't your traditional, what people think of with modular or manufactured homes. It's a great opportunity. They are very ready to go. I said the group out of DC and New York, he's like, if you have anyone that wants to talk, send them my way. The guy from New York, Joe, he's made, let's talk to Joe Romato. Yes. I know he's talking with Kim Highland and a few other people in this region. He's been with Louisa, he's been with Fluvanna counties. He's made his rounds very quickly. But yeah, people are ready, they're excited. So keep that in mind, get projects that are ready to go. And this, I mean, I think you all know most of our resources. I did bring some flyers for our fundamentals of affordable housing, our grant opportunities, and some of our homeowner resources. So please come see me. But at this point, I think it's just best just to answer questions and talk. What ideas you have. I mean, I don't know exactly how long we have, but I'm happy to stay and talk as much as we can. So,
Yeah, absolutely have time.
good.
Build in some time and then we'll do some things. What questions, comments do we want to ask? Start.
A little bit more texture to how the money comes in and stays in. Is it, are you looking at the community scale or the mortgage scale or both?
What do you mean money comes in?
In other words, is this primarily a loan rate buy down program, or can it come in as a grant for a project and then the deliverable is affordable housing?
Yep. So I mean, our commitment was to just put this money into projects. Would love to see people stretch it and make it bigger and keep it going themselves. But our commitment is the 75 million. And when that 75 million is done.
So you can use it however you want as long as you deliver the number of units at an AMI.
Yep. So the unit count, this is something we are still going back and forth on, but it's again tied to that distress level. it's between $30,000 and $50,000 per unit is the max we'll give. Of the 10 projects that got awarded last year, only one had the max amount in it. Everyone else asked for less and leveraged other funds.
Is the competition, when is the cycle of submission? Is it 11 for the low income housing tax?
No, no, we didn't do that to ourselves.
Yeah.
So that's what I was hoping to be able to share.
Oh, that's, when was it last time?
I will say, well, last time it was awards for, we announced the program in November and awards were given in May. This administration would like to see, as any administration would, awards announced before they leave office. So,
How about,
it's good for some people.
is it a statewide competition?
Yes.
Or it's not pooled by region, it's a statewide?
No, it is statewide. Again, that distress level was our way of trying to fare that out. If you looked at the projects that won, only one was in Northern Virginia, nothing was in Richmond, and one was in Hampton Roads. That was by design. I mean, those regions absolutely have a need, but we know that other parts of the state, that need is just as much and the resources are fewer. So I want to make sure that we can do what we can to support that.
Also appreciate the fact that there was, this number was 10. And because 10 seems like nothing when you're talking about Richmond or Charlottesville or whatever, but when you're talking about Nelson, it makes a huge difference.
Right.
So.
Right, and that's when we're scoring them, impact to the community is part of the scoring. So for that very reason, like you said, building 10 units in Arlington, cool. Building 10 units in Southwest Virginia that hasn't seen anything, awesome, great. Nelson, great. We did have something in there last year about we didn't want to see homes that were proffered. That was in our application and in the handbook. We overlooked it, but that is coming out for somebody. Yeah, so whenever this is announced, which we will be doing some kind of lunch and learn, virtual lunch and learn to go through all of the changes in the application process. And then I will be having 2 weeks set aside of doing just office hours where people will be able to set up meetings with me and talk through it. I am not on the scoring committee because I know every single project that's coming in. I've talked to most of them already and I know what they are, so I can't be that biased. But I can't tell you how to make your application more competitive, but I can answer questions. A big question last year that a lot of people wish they asked was about the job announcements. We want to see one job announcement to get to the job numbers. So that's again, distress level, 25 jobs, 50 jobs, or 100 from one company, not 30 companies to get to 50 jobs. It does not have to be a governor's announcement. Your region is lucky where you've seen, I think most of your region is covered now by a governor's approved announcement or governor supported announcement, but it can be something like a hotel opening or a Publix or a hospital system adding a new location or a new school opening. We want it to be as open as possible with everything.
But it has to be within 18 months of the project.
We're keeping that date the same.
Okay.
So I think it's July 1, 2022, 23, to present, an announcement in that time frame. And it doesn't mean they have to start opening by then, it just means they announce that they're going to open. Because this isn't an incentive for a company to come here or coming to expand. It is an incentive for a community that is attracting jobs to support their community.
How much have you given out already? 75 million?
Technically, we went over last round, we did about 17 million, but that we're still committed to 15 million a year for the next 4 months.
I have a question. You mentioned something about like knowing upon submission how you were scoring this time. Maybe I misheard that, as opposed to last time. where it was-
So last time we had a 100-point scale, and most of the items were out of 10 points. Like for the local match, you could get up to 20 points. But we never said, like, in that instance, a locality putting cash in was worth the exact same of a locality waiving tap fees. So like the scale of that, not as big. Employer involvement, there was some points for that. This time it's gonna be exactly like, if you're doing this, you get 2 points. If you're doing this, you get 1 point. So that way you'll know exactly what you need to do, how creative you can get, and how to work through that. And that is, I mean, the new scoring sheet it's done. Just wait to get the rules posted. That's it. Project.
A number of years ago, there was a pilot program where some different localities were using to test methods for housing.
Is that our innovation program?
Not sure.
Maybe. So we still have our innovation program. That is a much smaller bucket. I think it's 1.5 million for the year. I don't know for sure that we're doing it this year. It might be an every other year thing moving forward. And that was to look at new methods or services. So that's what we funded the 3D printed housing with. Some shipping container housing, some advancements in modular housing. And then now looking more at the service side of things. How can you better provide finance and more services to your communities? So this, absolutely, some of the innovation ones, I mean, modular, we funded that through innovation. One of our innovation ones this past year was this tiny micro unit type thing on the Eastern Shore. Got a project he wants to come in for this workforce one to scale that. So innovation, creativity, we're definitely gonna look at those things.
Maybe a little weedy, but how does the program track and certify beneficiaries? The responsibility of the recipient, and is it according to or CDBG standards?
So we're looking at for rental projects, it's been the same as we had it in the past. For any of our projects, we funded 80% AMI projects for years now, our mixed use program. So we have the mechanism inside to do that. For sale, this is lessons learned through the PDC grant. They have to put a lien on the property or a silent second mortgage or something to show us. It is up to the applicant to tell us how they're doing it. So people have different creative ideas. If it's a land trust, awesome, love to see it. However they're going to do it to make sure that they're meeting that affordability. Yeah, we don't want to see a project get $50,000 for a new home and then that owner turns around and sells it the next day.
Right, so I know you need restrictions, that makes sense. I'm just wondering what tracking beneficiaries. It's changing on the federal level, but it's coming out with the guidelines for that. But it sounds like there's flexibility.
Yeah, we've got some flexibility.
Any questions?
I had another one. From the like 80 to 120% AMI rate, were those sort of clustered on one end of that, or was it fair distribution?
It was distribution even within projects. There's a project down in Montgomery County outside of Blacksburg. They're building, I think it's 28 new duplexes. Some of them are 80%, some are 85, some are 95, 100. They really spread them out. That's just how they made the numbers work. They want to be sure to be able to serve everybody. So they got creative.
I'm sure understood this, but it's nice to ask her to make sure. If Green County has a job announcement, Albemarle can apply for it for a housing piece as long as it's within 45 minutes of that project.
Yeah.
And when you say new build, it's a developer that already has zoning in place, we've gone through all that, but has not actually started the project yet, let's say, it hasn't started building it.
Love to see that.
And if it has already started, the project in motion, qualify?
So if it's already fully funded, no. If you can find me a project right now that's fully funded and doesn't have some kind of gap.
Well,
But
the idea behind it is we just had a project coming from Brookville, where they had something done and all of that. They came in and asked for more density. So they had to come back and say, we want to do, this is what we had approved 10 years ago,
Okay.
building out. We'd like to build another 350. But it's kind of a new chunk or
Yep.
phase with that.
yeah, so that additional add-on would absolutely count. That would be eligible. And they wouldn't have to set aside all 350 units for this program. It can be a mix, absolutely.
If this Alamo does have projects in motion that happen, we have a developer incentive program that's not been used, with the flexibility of it is designed. Where I think this developer finds it, well, we want the units, nobody wanted these units 10 years ago.
Now-
Now the NIMBYism has changed. at
Right.
least In some areas.
Right, and I mean, just your job announcement, as presented. That's,
Well, we don't know, the state did things on that, so we can't comment on that.
I don't know details on it. I just know that it was announced. But that announcement would qualify you for this, and that's all we need.
Well, it sounds like you said even we've got a new school building down by Monticello. We've got a second one that's been approved to build in 5 years, so even new school buildings.
Right, yeah, because you're gonna have to hire new teachers and new staff and everybody. So absolutely, that would count. So, I mean, you can list a couple different job announcements. Like, we want to see the one to qualify, but then you can submit as many as you want to us showing like, hey, we really got this.
Your largest projects in terms of number of units for the revolving loan funds, I'm just curious how you structured those and kind of the size of your contribution and.
So the Washington County one, they're doing 268 homes. They're committing to building 100 homes a year. It's a big, large national builder who has the capacity to do that. So they're getting $3 million from us upfront to build 100 homes. Once they sell those 100 homes, that profit will then go into the next 100. So they're just going to keep it going with the idea that they will leave a little bit of that $3 million in each home. So it won't be a full million to build the next ones, but they're going to have some kind of subsidy tied into those. The Bristol one, he's just, I think that might be part of a land trust as well. You all talked with Jimmy Ross with the PDC. That Mount Rogers PDC they got very creative and did a lot of stuff with theirs and have kept it going. He set up a revolving loan fund, a housing trust fund. So they have a little bit of extra money they can put into things. So they're getting creative with stuff. There's definitely an applicant coming in Southwest Virginia again with another, not national builder, regional builder who's not done work in Virginia, who is also looking at a revolving loan fund where they'll build each home, it's like 50 homes, and then whatever's left of that, they're putting in a subsidy to the apartment portion of this project. That's what they're proposing. So things like that, you're getting a lot of units.
This is just the data, like this, the 15 million a year, what was the ask in the competition? Are there $100 million worth of ask and 15 million awards?
We got 37 applications. I think there's about 90 million, 80 to 90 million of asks. There was some that immediately were disqualified. They didn't have what they needed. How are you going to beat the local match or not? That's the answer. So yeah, I think it was about 80 to 90 million total. And that was a quick turnaround. It was announced in November and applications, I think, opened a month later. So people didn't have time to do it. I'm tracking this year and I think we're gonna get about double the amount of applications.
One of the things that was really amazing about the PDC grant was that it was so geographically diverse, that it, covered all 21 planning districts across the Commonwealth. I'm curious, as rounds go forward with this, is there any desire to kind of spread that geographic, or is there potential that previous applicants that were successful could be successful again with another one? Meaning, are you looking at all at the geography in the applications?
We're definitely looking at geography. I think there's certain localities that they need to get the projects, like some of these projects need to get moving first. We don't want to be competing against the same projects. Like Washington County building almost over 300 homes over the next couple of years. Probably don't need to build another 300 homes there and another development right down the road. But we're not ruling them out. If they put together a competitive application, they would absolutely be eligible. But we do want to see as much of the state win as possible.
The distress level, that sounds like something like an economic development team would know, or people who are doing this. would
So in the handbook, there's a map that lists
So it actually
everything.
shows you.
It shows you, it lists everything out. There's a couple changes from last year to this year in that, but it's only, I think, 2 or 3 counties changed, not for the better. So
Any other questions or comments? All right, let's go.
cool. Excellent. Thank you all.
And obviously, if you have questions or things come up later, Chris seems to be fielding a lot of questions from folks around the state, so just reach out. I'm sure you'd welcome that.
Yeah, thank you.
He likes
Absolutely, yeah. If you have questions, I'm available, phone, email, we'll make it work.
And is this presentation available?
I'm gonna put it on the SharePoint and send it out.
Great. So remember, we've got the SharePoint file now where we can share resources. Any of us can submit those in. If you need a reminder or a tutorial on how to do that, just hit up Logan and they'll walk you through it. But it's a place where any of us can drop info in. So and thank you very much, Chris. And I saw that Louise walked in. Louise, you actually made our quorum, physical quorum here today, I believe, if I got the count right. So now we have to vote on minutes. And we'll let you do your presentation, then we'll do the read-in for the folks online so that they can participate.
I was really using this trackpad.
Good afternoon, everybody. So again, I'm Luis Loyola. I am the Executive Director of the Piedmont Community Land Trust. I was asked to just provide a quick update about where we're at as the Community Land Trust for our region. And I'm happy to provide it because we have a lot of exciting things happening. First off, as a way to refresh people on Community Land Trust, because I find that even if people know of us and roughly know how we work, just the repetition helps people go deeper into how Community Land Trusts really work and what we are really here for. This is part of our homebuyer orientation where I compare the Piedmont Community Land Trust, home ownership in Piedmont Community Land Trust, to renting and what I call conventional home ownership, which is just buying in the market. You own the home and you own the land. I'm just going to focus on 2 of the rows. So the first one, for renting, rent and deposit is determined by the property owner, usually based on market conditions. I think we all know that it's different if light tech or HUD is involved, but generally speaking, the amount of rent and the deposit is determined by the property owner. Compared to the PCLT, the sales price is set by the PCLT, and it is based partially on market conditions. And what I mean by that is that our resale formula, we add a portion of the home's appreciation during the ownership tenure to the resale price when the time comes for that home to resell. So it is partially based on market conditions, but it is mostly based on what is affordable. So when we have a home coming up on our pipeline, we discuss with our mortgage lending partners, primarily, like, someone with this financial profile, how much they can afford. Or we'll say, we can reach this price as this affordable. And then for conventional homeownership, generally the sales price is set by a seller, generally based on market conditions, barring any deed restrictions on resale. And then for the equity, the full value of, in renting, full value of the rent is earned by the property owner. And both for the PCLT and for conventional homeownership is the same. The more you pay down in your mortgage, the more down payment you have, the more equity you have in the home, which is one of the primary ways of building wealth through homeownership. I bring these up because, especially when talking to community members, particularly the comparison between renting and PCLT on those 2 points is what's most important. I think it's a lot of people that I talk to, obviously prefer to own the land. That's sort of like the norm here in the United States. And that's totally legitimate. And so what I try to tell people is like, if that's what you want and you can achieve that, that's great. We're not going to stop anyone. However, the barriers right now are so high to buy any home on the market, and that people are more focused on trying to get out of rent for what I highlight. So anyways, that's just a way to sort of catch people back up on how community land trusts work and the purpose. This home was recently sold this summer. It's our 6th home on Prospect Avenue specifically. We have about 13 homes in the Fikeville neighborhood. And this one we acquired it for $310 and we put subsidy in it to lower the price back to $240 and sold it to a low-income household. It had already been recently renovated, so we needed to do very little repairs. This was just a case of, a home in a low-income area that's been facing a lot of gentrification going into the market, and us stepping in to keep it from selling and then potentially reselling at higher and higher prices. So by coming into the CLT, we're able to preserve its, comparatively naturally affordable price. We also recently sold this one. This was originally built and developed by the Piedmont Community Land Trust. This one's on Nassau Street. It's one of our 4 duplexes there. It's a net zero home. It has solar panels out. From the time it was built in 2019, those owners continue to not pay anything in electricity bills, which is extra savings for those homeowners. This was resold for $265, and you can see it's a decent sized home, 1,500 square feet, 3 bedrooms, 2.5 bathrooms. This one is particularly useful to bring up in this group because this is the first time one of our homes has resold twice, which is at that stage of a home being in our portfolio. That's when the CLT model is really tested. And what I mean by that is in this chart on the red line, this is the appraised value every time the home was sold, because that's what we do in order to try to set the price. So when it was originally sold by us, the market value was $300,000, but we sold it for $215, because that's what was actually affordable to someone making less than 80% AMI. 3 years later, when that owner sold, the appraised value then was $405,000. We added a portion of that to the original sales price to bring it up to $243,000. And then when that owner this year decided to move and resell, the market value was $425,000, and it was resold for $265,000. Now, one thing to highlight about that second resale, there was actually a clerical error in the ground lease for the ones when it was sold in 2022 that made the resale value too high. So we worked with the owner to try to come up with a middle ground where we honor the mistake, but it's still affordable, to people trying to buy a home. So that's why it doesn't exactly match up with, the way that the value has changed in the market. But we're still keeping it affordable. I just wanted to use real numbers to really drive home like how it is that we're working in reality. And this tracks with how CLTs overall work. As the market value goes up, CLT homes, the sales price goes up also, but not to a point that it becomes unaffordable to the demographic served by the community land trust. And so that's observed with this one. As far as what's coming up, one of our very exciting projects is in partnership with Greenwood Homes. It's up 29 North behind the Walmart where the water tower is. We have two bedroom homes that are under contract now for $260,000, and 6 3-bedroom homes that are 2 of them are under contract for $275,000, and the other 4 we still haven't listed them yet. They're not ready, but they're coming up. These homes were appraised at $400,000, meaning that's likely higher than that. That's what it would have sold in the market. But we are selling them that much lower than the market value. Some key ingredients to make that happen. Number 1 is Albemarle County's requirements to have the 20% of units be affordable. That when a developer comes to the table and wants to build this neighborhood, that those requirements are a great mechanism to add more to the affordable housing stock in the area. But Greenwood Homes also play a huge part in us being able to lower the price. Greenwood brought their own money to the table to bring down the cost, so the price. So originally the price for us was going to be $310. They were willing to actually explain that $310 wasn't actually going to be affordable to people making less than 80% AMI. They were willing to bring it further down to $260 and $275 respectively for those models. It also took a lot of work working with our mortgage lending partners to really get down to the numbers and go through all the challenges that we've seen with underwriting especially for low-income households, when they're more likely to have debt issues and credit issues that get in the way of actually being qualified for a mortgage. Our partners have been really key in helping people get to a yes and being honest with the people who are a no. Human Housing Alliance Financial Opportunity Center has played a huge role in preparing people, whether or not we're selling a home, preparing people with the housing counseling team. So they are already talking to a mortgage lender. They're already seeing if they qualify for down payment assistance and Spark and all the many programs that they offer, credit building, so that when the PCLT does list a home, they have people who are ready to go. Then closing costs, in this case, PCLT is covering the closing costs for these 8 homes, therefore reducing the barrier of how much cash someone has to bring to the table, which is another really big barrier for low-income households. And then finally, Greenwood has been very flexible with us on the timeline. They've understood that when you're dealing with people who are likelier to have these things to work through and qualifying buyers, it just takes time. We need time, and they've given that to us. So we entered into contract in April, and we just entered into our 4th contract this week for our 4th home. And then over in Fluvanna County, Stanley Martin Homes has been building Colonial Circle. The PCLT is acquiring 3 of their townhomes, and like we did with 715 Prospect, we're acquiring them at their listing price, which in this case, actually, this was a mistake. It's their listing price was $310. We are putting subsidy into it to lower it to $240 to $250 for their 3-bedroom townhome model. Some key ingredients here to make it happen was, number one, cash availability. Stanley Martin wasn't as flexible as Greenwood for a variety of reasons. And so us having the cash available to close on their timeline so that we fully own the home and then we can sell it on our timeline was very important. And then we brought our own subsidy, so they gave us a reduced listing price, but we brought the subsidy to lower it further, so someone making less than 80% AMI can actually afford it. And then, like I already mentioned, PHA at FOC has been really helpful here, and us covering the closing costs. We have 2 of these homes under contract and one that we haven't listed yet. Now, how we made it all happen, Virginia Housing's single-family developer grant pilot was basically the reason we were able to make all of this happen. In April, Virginia Housing announced unsolicited $800,000 awarded to each community land trust in Virginia. They did that knowing that that investment is going to be preserved through the model, right? Like I explained, you know, we're able to stay below market value over time. But it's a pilot in the sense that they're going to see how we do, and then they're going to hopefully relaunch the grant next year as a competitive application, not limited to only CLTs. The only major expectation with this grant is that we develop a minimum of 8 homes using those funds over a period of 2 years. Otherwise, they have explicitly given us a lot of flexibility in how we spend it, which is really important for organizations like us where we don't just build homes in one way, right? So we do rehab, we do new construction, we do developer partnerships. And so our money needs to be that flexible also, and especially when we're working on the timelines of our partners. So because of that flexibility, that's actually enabled us to go double the minimum expectation of homes developed. And we are on track to develop 17 homes using this grant money. For context on impact on our portfolio, currently our portfolio is 41 homes. With this grant, we'll be able to add 17 homes. I bring that up because, you know, all of us have been involved in affordable housing funding discussions, and sometimes these requirements and limitations are a huge factor in how successful a project is and how much it can deliver. In this case, the flexibility is really helping us deliver. And then some challenges I think is good for this group of folks to hear. Number one, increase development costs and affordability gap. So it's just a reality all across. I don't think anyone here is a stranger to the fact that because of that rising cost of development, it becomes that much harder to sell a home at a price that is particularly affordable to low-income households. For us, it's a challenge to have cash flow to keep up with opportunities. So we get a fairly large number of opportunities all throughout the year, at this point from all counties since I've been here, for the counties within the TJPDC, where someone has a piece of land or a house that, you know, they have to get rid of it, or they just want to sell it, and they really want it to go to affordable housing. Because we don't have the liquidity to actually dig deep and say, okay, let's work this out, we just have to say no and move on. Where, you know, if we had more flexibility, we could have said yes, and then figure out how to fundraise the subsidy. And then this is an evergreen challenge of how deep we can go in affordability. I'm a strong believer that homeownership should have the widest possible range in affordability for income ranges. But at the further you go, you know, going towards 30% AMI, especially, just the more challenging it becomes and the more subsidy you need per unit. So that just remains a challenge for us. Although in the case of the 5 duplexes that we rehabbed in Prospect Avenue with PHA, we were able to have all of those homeowners be between 40 to 50% AMI. Another challenge is tackling moderate income ranges, so roughly between 80 to 110% AMI. These are households that call us a lot whenever we list a home. And they're households that really want to buy our home, but they're either just above or a little further above our income limits, and so they don't qualify. These households, from talking to people in these families, they're also being priced out of this area. And so they're a demographic that is now also needing a service like the Piedmont Community Land Trust, but it's a different strategy figuring out how to serve them. And so that's where the challenge is. And then ideal developer and builder partnerships. I think a lot of our developers are absolutely in the right mindset about the need for affordable housing in this region. But the for-profit model is inherently different from the nonprofit model, especially when it comes to timeline. And so something that we're sort of working on over time is how to be at the table at the earliest stage possible of a development so that we can inform how the course of the development can open up the most funding and therefore bring more affordable housing into the project. And then finally, zoning and regulations. Zoning is less of an issue now in Charlottesville, but given the amount of rural parcels that people have brought to us to discuss, zoning has been a big barrier in rural areas because they're zoned agriculture and we're just not going to be able to build enough homes there to make the math work. And then final regulations, this was not as big of a deal as zoning, but just costs associated with infrastructure especially can be a barrier for us to be able to develop. And then finally, I just want to make a plug for this report by the Lincoln Institute for Land Policy and Grounded Solutions Network. Grounded Solutions Network is one of the main technical support and advocacy networks for community land trusts in the United States. They've been around for decades and they compiled this report on how to do municipal partnerships with community land trusts, both the why and the how. They have a lot of really good case studies in that report. This QR code will take you to just the summary, but the 96-page report is also very much worth a read. That's it.
Thank you. Questions or comments for Louise?
I have a question. Can you tell us a little bit about how, when you're selling a land trust house, how you talk to the homeowner about equity and how they get their return when you're talking about, generational wealth and things like that, being able to go to the next stage of ownership?
Like just specifically within the land trust model or just generally?
Well, the land trust model is different, right? And I would sell my house and I'd get to keep all of the equity, and then I could either put that into my new house or buy a new car, boat, or something like that, right? But so with the land trust, it's different. How does that work? How do people respond to it? How do you explain it?
In our orientations, I have a specific real case of one of our homeowners who we sold a home. He was in the home for 3 years and he had a down payment of $10,000. And after doing our resale formula, we added $25,000 to his home. So the way I break it down for people is that, just from his own cash and doing mortgage payments, he had acquired $10,000 in equity. And then with the addition of what was added to the sales price based on our resale formula, he also kept those $25,000. And in that specific case, he used that as a down payment in a larger market rate home as not a community land trust. So that's how we try to explain it to people.
Can I follow up on that?
Yes.
So especially in the higher interest rate world, have you tracked the net payments that an owner has made vis-a-vis the equity they get at the time of resale? So for example, you take somebody who puts 30 years worth of P&I into a home. The principal is easy to calculate. It's the cost, it's the sale price, but then the interest is going to be spending on the interest rate, 3 times that, 4 times that. Do you track that relative to the equity they can earn through your resale formula?
We haven't done that deep.
So it's possible they could spend more, they could pay more than they can actually take out at the end of the day. Is that right?
Oh, okay, I see what you're saying, yeah, we haven't done that for every resale case, but the one that we used as a case study, we took out what they have sort of lost in the transaction. And that was those 35,000 that they made. Is that what you're getting at?
Yeah. So again, in a low interest rate environment, if they could get a 3% loan or a 2% loan, they're obviously benefiting from the reduced sales price of the house and only paying for the improvements, not for the land. And they're only then paying 2-3% interest on their money in a 6-7% interest rate environment. The deal is very, very different for a family, right? So let's say they paid 10 years worth of P&I, but in the first 10 years of the 30-year mortgage term, that's mostly interest that they've paid. Have you calculated that and thought about adjusting your formula in terms of the resale amount based on equity for families, given the interest carry?
I see what you mean now. We don't have a mechanism for adjusting the resale formula based on interest rate. Redoing our formula is a conversation our board is having because of the changing market environment. It's been the same since it was founded in 2008. But that is one concern, and also the fact that market appreciation is not as sharp as it was 4 or 5 years ago, and compounded with the fact that people are just reselling quicker in general. So it's a conversation right now. It's just not something we've done today.
Correct me if I'm wrong, but they don't usually pay PMI on these loans, right? Because the property values, the ratios.
I said P and I, not P.
Sorry, misheard you. But then also with, back to your question about the education pool, some of the other land trusts across the state have developed like a way of showing what it would take you to get to a down payment if you just continue renting. To show like you're not getting any equity out of that, so you're just going to keep building and building and building. That's as part of their onboarding. And then also, that's Piedmont PVC, their land trust is getting developed. They're proposing that if you stay in your home or it stays in your family for 25 years, the shared equity goes out the window and you get to keep 100% of the equity.
That's great. What interest is that?
West Piedmont.
Yeah, that's something that can factor into our conversation too.
And that gets full stuff. The generational wealth aspect of it is.
Yeah, and also incentivize people staying in the home too.
It's no longer land trust.
After the 25 years.
So Dan, thank you. These are things we'll look at.
And one other question about that, I'm sorry to monopolize the conversation, but have you looked at the back end ratios? Because you're not making loans. Have you looked at the back end ratios of the families that purchased? Do you look at that every time to make sure that they're affordable?
We haven't dug to specific numbers, but we do ask every year, as of last year, where's your income at? Like, are you at would you consider yourself at a wealthier place than you were before you started? That's something that other CLTs do, though, tracking that I would like to start doing, to actually be able to see with hard numbers, are people in a more comfortable place than they were?
Other questions?
Luis, thank you very much.
Thank you all.
Thank you, Luis. Real quick, we'll just do we have to vote in the folks online. Is Greg subbing in for something today?
No, just an interested citizen.
I know, did I miss that you were subbing in? We always love having you, Greg. So Shayla, who do we need? Shayla, Keisha. Keisha's just attending.
Yeah.
Oh, Kathleen must have been a drop off. That's who I was looking.
Yeah, Kathleen was on that.
Shayla, are you there?
Yes, I'm here.
If you could just state your location and your purpose for attending online, then we can take the vote to allow you to vote on the minutes.
Yes, I am a member of the Regional Housing Partnership with TJPDC.
But you're in Charlottesville?
Yes, I'm in Charlottesville, Virginia.
Thank you. And if we could have a motion to allow Shayla to participate online.
So moved.
Second.
I'll second it.
All right, if all, please say aye.
Aye.
Thank you. Is any
Shayla?
opposed?
We need to know if it's a medical reason or a personal reason.
It's a
Shayla,
medical reason.
Thank you.
Thank you. Is that one of them? Changes this year? Was that last year? You're asking that, somebody, I should have just admitted that. If we could quickly, we made some changes to the minutes of the June 25 meeting. If there could, if we could have a motion to approve as amended.
Second.
All right, all in favor, please say aye. Any opposed? Abstentions? And then if we could have a motion to approve fiscal year 26 year-to-date financials.
Second.
All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Abstentions? Great, thank you for that. That was the only item we didn't vote on. The next item, we have a housing study update, and Lori Jean is right behind you.
Yeah, so we're moving full steam ahead, and thank you, so many of you have already been involved in the housing study, so thank you for your support and your interest, and want to get more involved. We have had listening sessions with each locality, primarily staff and board, and members of each locality, but also they were able to invite, some of you were invited to your listening session, and the researchers got some really great foundational qualitative information from that process that just kind of kicked things off. Since then, we have also had about 30 people attend the training. Really cool. So a lot of folks in our region are learning how to use data. A lot of it is around census data. So the ACS, the CHAZ, but also realtor data, BLS, some other components. So we're kind of wrapping up the training portions. That's been phenomenal. And we're heading into focus groups with people with various types of expertise, employers, developers and builders, service providers. And in the meantime, the Housing for Virginia folks are working on understanding the policy landscape in our region, and so that will be incorporated into the final report. And as you can imagine, our consultants at Virginia Tech are doing a lot of efforts. So you should be expecting some preliminary information in the new year. Again, if you have any questions or want to be involved, then talk to me.
Then we just had a quick advisory committee reminder. Logan will start, and I'm going to chime in with it.
Yeah, I did a tiny little presentation, I'll just run through it really fast. So we have previously discussed we have a new tier of membership with the RHP. This up here is just as it exists currently with the executive committee and then the general membership body. For a while, we've had in the framework a list of organizations, probably an incomplete list of organizations that are purported to make up our sort of advisory body for this organization, which is not well defined previously. We are attempting to activate that into getting either folks who are current members of the partnership who for whom the attendance is difficult, or other requirements. So with the advisory committee, there would be no voting or attendance requirements. So hypothetically, you could drop down to be on this advisory committee, and the idea would be to still be sort of in the orbit of the organization, and ideally to be able to draw on you sort of regularly to either present or share events in your network with us. And the other side to that is we're looking to like sort of engage with these organizations that we, I don't have any contact info for, and just anyone that you all might know that is interested in participating in this way with us, being, more than sort of member of the public, but not having sort of the responsibility of coming to a certain number of meetings. So that's the long and short of it. This was an incomplete list of some of the types of organizations we have in our framework currently. So anyway, ideally through this, we're able to reach out to more groups and get them to be a part of us, without having to, be committed for the long term. It would be more of a case by case. Hey, you have expertise in this, and it's relevant to what we were talking about. We can contribute this way. So anyway, Heather, you have something to add?
Well, it's just when we did our strategic plan, we talked about having more people involved, but we were hesitant to want to grow this body. Just adding the last few just moved our quorum from 11 to 13. So if you keep doing that, it can become problematic. So we have had folks who are currently with us who'd like to drop down to this level of involvement, which is fine. But a lot of those folks on the previous slide, we see every 2 years at our housing summit, but we don't really see them throughout the year. So this could be a way to let them be involved to help you sharing resources, et cetera, or present without having to be full on committed to being a voting member. So I think it's a clever way, and it's already set up in our bylaws. We don't have to make any changes or anything like that to have this advisory committee. And I would suggest if you have anybody working in the space that's working on affordable housing, you think would be interested, to suggest them to Logan and or Ruth or myself, and we can do the reach out and then show them what they're doing. And then explain the SharePoint to them as well, because this could be a place where they're dropping in resources for us all to look at, or even become speakers or presentations at some of our meetings. As we're going to continue to try to offer the approach like having Chris here today and Louise present in future full partnership meetings. I think this could be a great place, to Chris's point in his presentation about including economic development folks in all of our jurisdictions under the PDC umbrella. We could ask them to be involved, and they can sit in on a meeting or provide information, et cetera. So that could be a good starting point. That's a fair point. I mean, not saying we don't have any.
Yeah.
But we could grab some others. So thank you, Logan. Any questions or comments on that? We're going to go quickly to then some quick. We have a new Vista person. Ruth's going to handle that introduction.
Yes. So everyone, I'm certain you've received an email from Emily London. She's our new Vista this year. She's taken over what Caden was working on last year. She comes to us from Rice University in Texas and has actually previously worked with a regional commission in Texas. So she has background in public policy and civic leadership, and is very excited. Would you like to say?
I think Ruth pretty much covered it, but I'm really excited to be working with all of you throughout this year. Yeah, you will be hearing more from me, but I'm excited to see everyone in person.
If you have any ideas related to the RHP, reach out to Emily and she'll be glad to meet with you.
And Caden, he's in school, right?
Yeah, he's
Back
at
to school.
UVA back to school.
So he's at the public policy group, so those are, he's still around the area, so if you all, he's not bashful to reach out and connect with folks and network, but he is in the area, so please remember that as well. Well, welcome, Emily. We have some general housing program updates. Ruth is going to handle that.
So I wanted to let you guys know that there was a couple of webinars that Virginia Department of Housing and Community Development hosted the last 2 weeks related to their new Home Arc Developers Subsidy Grant program, which is for development of affordable housing rental units for qualifying populations. It's 5 units per development. It doesn't seem to be up on their website yet. I'm not sure why, but they did post to how to apply webinars. If you have questions, I can get you contact information for someone there. But they expanded their eligibility requirements, so it is different from what they published like 2 years ago. There was a Keys to a Housing Affordability Summit that was hosted by Senator Mark Warner in Richmond earlier this month that I was able to attend. There were some interesting presentations, including one by Jimmy Moss about what they're doing there. And then Senator Warner shared his legislative agenda, which actually had a lot related to affordable housing. We successfully submitted a housing preservation grant application for federal fiscal year 25 funds, and we're waiting to hear if we
Speak up a little bit.
oh, I'm sorry. We're waiting to see if we received and will receive an award for the housing preservation grant funds. The notice of funding opportunity for that is usually published early in the spring, and for whatever reason, it was released at the beginning of August with an application deadline of September 4th. So it was a very quick turnaround for us, especially with public comment requirements. The PDC development grant that we received from Virginia Housing has largely wrapped up that we've been administering with a couple of small exceptions. One of them is pretty visible, is Vista 29. And I'm just thinking about the Regional Housing Partnership Strategic Plan being through 2025, which is this year. So that's something that we're going to need to talk about in our future. That's all.
Thank you, Ruth. Will the Warner, any items or presentations available online from the Keys to Housing?
Not that I saw.
And then Logan, you have some grant applications updates?
Yeah, Ruth kind of covered them already. That's okay. I'll just add on the HPG front. From what I've heard from USDA, they're looking to turn that one around faster than they usually do. So hopefully we do hear back in the next couple of weeks. The way that grant works is we apply for a portion of the state allocation. In this case, we actually applied for the whole state allocation because last year, and I don't know if I briefed this group on this, but last year we applied for half because if there's more than one applicant, you can only be awarded half, but we were the only successful applicant. The other half disappeared back, well, this didn't disappear, but it went to, I think, multifamily housing or something within USDA. We applied for the full amount this time. Doesn't mean we're going to get it, but we will see what happens.
What is the full amount?
The full amount was like 270,000 or so.
Yeah,
Still not a lot.
not a lot. But it helps, it really helps.
That's right.
And they also indicated that this year, unlike other years, they may actually shuffle around, which kind of defeats the purpose of the state allocation to me, but they may shuffle around money. Maybe it was because last year in Virginia, we just had the one, but they indicated that they might take money from states that there's less demand and reallocate it towards states where there is more demand. We do have more demand this year in Virginia, from what I understand. We will see. That's all I have.
Great, thank you. So that brings us to a roundtable. If anybody's not participating in a roundtable, you go around and just share things that are happening in your space. Like to be knocked out by 4. So we'll just be mindful of the time, as we go around. Dan, you want to get us started? I'll just move around the table.
Got a lot going on, trust me, really fast. So Southwood, our big project in Albemarle County, the first phase, 350 units, 65% of which are affordable, is nearing its completion. By the first quarter that's coming up here, every single home and all will be built, occupied, and all the rooms dedicated. We're now in phase 2, that's 700 homes, inclusive of a 30,000 square foot community center space. So the residents from the later villages are now designing villages 5 and villages 6, and so we're kind of, I wouldn't say rinse and repeat, but we're in a good rhythm there. Same time as we're doing Southwood, we're still working on trying to serve people throughout the region. You know, we work in Louisa, Green, Albemarle, and Charlottesville. We're just starting 16 homes with the Flint Hill development in Charlottesville. We have a tester home going up as a sort of pilot project for the zoning ordinance on 6th and Half Street downtown. We are working with PHA to redevelop the Maca site, which will be about 90 affordable apartments plus 20 habitat homes and a handful of more homes. Well, nationally, we are working on drafting, well, we have drafted a program called the Starter Home Accelerator Bill that is now being sponsored by Senator Warnock. We're looking for a Republican senator to co-sponsor that. It's nothing to move forward if it's not bipartisan. Hopefully, once we get a Republican sponsor, I can bring that back here so we can potentially put it on the legislative agenda, or at least the advocacy agenda of all folks who will. We were just, again, for about the 5th year in a row, our habitat affiliate was the most productive habitat affiliate in the world for a service area our size. So we worked on 70 homes. Great. Got a lot going on. Sir.
Mr. Norris?
That's an impossible act to follow. So I'm with the Charles Area Association Realtors Foundation. Our big focus this last month, we have a fundraiser, actually raising money for closing costs at Victoria Heights with the Land Trust. So we're generating about $40,000 from that fundraiser. We're kicking off a couple volunteer programs for realtors to get involved in affordable housing and
I'm smaller, my outfit kind of view from the small architecture firm here in town, but we've completed the construction at Southwood for the PHA apartments and certificates that are in hand, so those should be coming up soon. Vista 29 is under construction. I think it topped out, and so not sure we go in soon. So that construction project is on its way for 80 folks. And we're working with PHA and Habitat on the back side as well. So a number of others in the trenches, people have built.
Yeah, I'm Emily Dreyfus, and I work with the Legal Aid Justice Center, and I've been doing a lot of work with the Public Housing Association of Residents and the Charlottesville Low Income Housing Coalition on the big luxury student housing proposed for West Main Street, 843 West Main, right next to the Standard. It was originally designed to be 11 stories, and it would very much overshadow West Haven. So my work right now is in the strange position of kind of being an indie and working with folks who are feeling like this is such a severe impact on their quality of life, and trying to get the zoning changed in that area so that it would have more of the neighborhood corridor designation, like what's on Preston, abutting 10th and Page. So we will keep our fingers crossed about that. And I'm also helping FAR with their internship program. And I went to a conference recently called YIMBY Town, where one of my takeaways was something different. Someone was talking about retrofitting office space into what they call dormitory style housing. I think that might be a little negative a term for adults, but more like single room occupancy, because when you renovate office buildings, the plumbing comes up the center. So it is amenable to like having a ring of small apartments around the whole outside, so everybody gets a window and very affordable. So I thought that was interesting and would love to talk with people more about it. I don't have tons of more information, but I thought that was great.
I'm out in Nelson with the Nelson County Community Development Foundation. We're working very hard on getting our PDC and Homework project underway with the Roseland Apartments, and it felt like it was going long, and then all of a sudden I just heard today that we'll be having our modular duplexes delivered like October 20th. So really, it's just finding them $700,000. So yeah, and then we also started and we're fundraising for that. So if anybody wants to drop some dollars my way, I got a Perry Foundation grant to help me pay for that. And so if anybody wants to fund me, that's great. Also in like trying to get people aware of home buying, because Nelson has been such a tight market for so long. No, I mean, that average house is just like Charlottesville, but some of the people are more poor. But anyway, we're doing, working with SURCAP and Piedmont Housing, actually to do some fall classes, class series on getting people ready to buy a home. So it's pretty exciting stuff that we used to do in the way past long ago, and now we're trying to get people ready to buy homes. Because anything happens and we might be building homes for sale. So, and you know, also rehab and everything else. So those are our exciting things.
Thank you.
My next, Alice Fletcher with Park Properties Management Company. So happy to report that the codes at Monticello is 90% leased, and so we're down to 19 units. That's been highly successful where it's mixed income, so 50, 60, 70% area median income. Our company has received recognition for some of our properties, national recognition of communities of quality, and we have entered Oakdale and Treesdale into it, which is 2 local properties, and community qualities are recognized nationally for affordable housing that meets exemplary standards for maintenance, compliance, and also how they build communities, how they have functions for residents. So fingers crossed that Brookdale and Treesdale will meet that standard, because it's something we're very proud of. And it's also something in the community that we can show NIMBYism, like this is quality homes are nationally recognized.
Before I go to you, Diane, I'm just going to jump online.
Yeah,
Shayla, would you like to give an update? Catch you off guard as we go around the table?
Sure. This is Shayla Washington. I'm the executive director of the Blue Ridge Area Coalition for the Homeless, or BRAC. BRAC's currently on the tail end of finalizing our 3-year strategic plan with an external consultant, Dr. Tamara Dias. So hopefully we'll have that posted on our website pretty soon. And I know she did reach out to a couple of you in the room to get feedback for that plan, so thank you. I also continued to attend weekly meetings regarding the design of a year-round low-barrier shelter with Salvation Army, Pacham, City of Charlottesville, and Albemarle County. And we also included the Haven as of this week. So we're still exploring some other potential sites just to be respectful of the Fifield Neighborhood Association, but we're still keeping the Cherry Avenue thrift store site in strong consideration for our final plans. But I think that's pretty much it on the BRAC end.
Thank you. Diane, Carter.
Well, represented right now, of course, transit for this group, but regional transit partnership is still needed. But the plan is to phase that out by the end of the year, in December. Part of the Charlottesville Albemarle Regional Transit Authority has also been meeting. We've been meeting the 2 groups have been meeting every month. So CARTA, of course, will continue. We'll see that in January as a regional transportation brings us out. Interesting about it. Now, we'll just mention this. One of the, I think one of the focuses at the meetings, the Regional Transit Partnership focuses that the providers liked so much was this very roundtable. Again, roundtable for all the transit partnerships, and they could actually hear what everybody was doing and updates, which is what I think this group likes about this roundtable as well. We're trying to figure out how, as we shut down the partnership and move to the authority, how to keep the partners, the transit, our providers in some sort of a connected way, which is kind of a little bit of a challenge, but we're trying to figure it out. Anyway, so we do have a CARTA meeting tomorrow afternoon, if anyone is interested, right in here at 5 o'clock. We will be receiving an update on MicroCat, which I think most of you all are aware of. It's actually, you guys, pretty interesting. And then we'll be talking about, we have a letter from DRPT appointing someone officially. And then we're going to be talking about a prioritization study. Some of you all may remember that we did a vision plan for what transit would look like in our community. And we had a constrained and unconstrained network of services, which carried 2 really different price tags. They have very expensive price tags, both of them are different. And so we're looking at a study that will develop an implementation plan for the network of services that identifies cost, feasibility, and then short, mid, and long-term timelines. So that will be discussed tomorrow. So if you want another meeting tomorrow afternoon, come join us.
Thank you, Michael.
Yeah, a couple things people have touched on. The city still is trying to identify a location for a year-round low barrier shelter that there's consensus on in order to set the stage for investing in that in our budget, and turning that into reality. Their new zoning ordinance, I think, we're still in a place of, as a community, seeing what can that new zoning ordinance achieve, what can it not achieve, and one of the tensions we're seeing is around areas where 7, 9, or 11 stories are allowed by right with limited density. Economically, it only makes sense for that to be student housing. There's areas where that makes sense. Are there areas like near West Haven public housing sites where the community is deciding that is not the intended goal of the zoning, not just in terms of the aesthetics of the neighborhood, but the economic impact of induced demand for businesses that cater to students and gentrification and things like that. The Housing Advisory Committee got a first look at looking at a potential tax abatement program to try to incentivize development that has inclusionary zoning required affordable housing units. It was first passive data, but it was interesting that it found that the tax abatement program would likely not have that big an impact on creating more development, and that even without any inclusionary housing requirements, that development is not economically feasible in most areas of the city except for student housing, especially when you're going 5 stories and above. That could just be current market conditions, but it is an interesting data point. And city's gearing up for our next budget cycle locally, and as well as the General Assembly session. And I think there will be some big advocacy opportunities in the General Assembly that we're looking forward to. I'm sure this body or other localities could play a role in with things like the 5,000 Families Fund to create a state level voucher program, legislation to allow localities to have a first right of refusal for properties that have low income housing tax credit, affordability periods ending, and lots of other things. That's it.
Thank you. Annette?
Hi, I'm Annette Hyde. I am the chair of the Virginia CareerWorks Piedmont Workforce Development Board, and I just wanted to highlight about 3 things that's going on. Friday, October 3rd, we're going to have a job fair at the Crozet Library. On Saturday, October 4th, we will be having a Next Gen Skills Trades Day at PVCC. And this is a free hands-on event to, for high schoolers and their parents to come and learn about the in-demand trades that we're really covering right now: building, manufacturing, electrical, HVAC, plumbing. In partnership with Atlantic Union Bank, we are now have a jobs-ready clothes closet for those folks who are going through a program and are ready to go out interviews, but don't have the proper wear to look their best at their interview. The official announcement is coming soon, but right now we've already got clothing at our office on Glenwood Station Lane.
Alice, Rachel, UVA.
Hi all, Alice Rauscher, I'm representing the university with my colleague Rachel Hobbs. So we just began our first, our academic year, and we're hoping for a rather boring semester for a change. With regard to our affordable housing initiative that we're working on with the foundation, a little slow going. Our Portland and 10th Street project, our developers preservation for affordable housing is reevaluating their funding sources, having not been successful with the 9% LIHTC. So they're really waiting until the end of the year to see the effects of the election, et cetera. PHA is working on their rezoning application for the Piedmont site. I'm surprised you didn't mention that, Kurt.
I don't know how much I can say about that, but it's ongoing.
Sure, that's all right. And there are 3 teams under review for the developer selection for the North Fork housing. So that decision will likely be made this fall as well. So, some movement, not as fast as we were hoping on some of the in-town properties. What is moving fast is our student housing. So we are going to be completing 780 beds on the Ivy Corridor by 2027. Jordan will be also completing 340 beds to support their students by 2027. So that's 1,100 beds on grounds. And if you count the Verve and the Blue Lawn Ivy, that's about 3,000 new beds coming online in 2027. So it's going to be very interesting to see what impact that has on the surrounding neighborhoods.
A little personal announcement. I am going to be coming off the Regional Housing Partnership, Thomas Jefferson Planning District Commission, and the Piedmont Community Land Trust at the end of my tenure of the commission's chairmanship. I've got some health issues and family issues. I've been on the commission for 15 years. It's time to make some room for other folks and other thoughts. So hard decision, but I'm gonna miss you all and listening. I got till June, guys, so I'll be around here annoying people until June. But listening from Dan all the way over to this side of the table, this is awesome work this body does. And listening to the round table, I'm just extremely proud to be part of it. Now I'm gonna give you the bad news. I usually do market updates. You ready? Albemarle County detached the first 8 months of the year 2024 versus 2025 includes new construction. Detached, you're up 4%. Your volume of sales are down 2%. Michael, you're not doing good in the city of Charlottesville. Your detached value is down 6.1%. So single family detached homes are 6.1% lower this first 8 months versus the last 8 months. You're attached to flat. Your volume is pretty low on attached product. My home county of Havana is up 8% on detached, down about 4% on attached. That has something to do with the land trust a little bit, setting the price on that. Greene County is up 6% in value, and Louisa County is up 3% on detached. Nelson, you're down 4% on detached. So some jurisdictions are up a little bit, some jurisdictions are down. I was very surprised at the Charlottesville numbers. I didn't expect to see that happen. You guys are down about 6%. And that's been holding true this whole year. So that's the bad news, and I'm in the issue.
Thank you, sir. Luis?
You heard me for 15 minutes, so I'll save you time.
I just throw out there that I'm heading up at the this must have been my July CAC meeting. There's a new developer group, WODA, that will be doing their first project. They've got an application going through. It's the old Flaming Walk property out on 29 that oversees like above the food line. It's 100% affordable, 90 some units as is. If they could sneak it up, they could get as big as 120 some, but the site's kind of a small site, which is this group's niche. They kind of do 100 units when they do projects. But this is gonna, I forgot the breakdown, but this is gonna be targeting predominantly those at 30 to 50% AMI, which is the big place where we need some activity. But there won't be anything over 80%, but I just forget the breakdown of the percentages, but I'm pretty sure more than half of them, if not all, are gonna be in that 30 to 50% kind of target. So that's great. And then outside of that, the Albemarle will be completing the comp plan this fall as we've been working on that. We're gonna get that part. And then like the city will start moving into financial planning and stuff to get ready for the budget stuff that starts. Did I miss anyone for the roundtable? Well, great. I just want to remind you all the next full partnership, we're going to see each other again on December 17th. It's hard to say that month's name already. It's all virtual. And we already have been reaching out or been targeted some folks to do a presentation from a couple of national groups on housing. But if you all have ideas for folks you think might be a good idea to include, we're wanting to do in these full partnership, like what Chris was able to deliver for us, that idea was born out of this body. So just send those on to Logan if you have ideas or folks, because we're already kind of thinking 2 meetings ahead as we're prepping for speakers or presentations we think that this body will find interesting. So shoot them out to us. Great. Well, thank you all for your time today. It's good to see everybody in person, and hope you all enjoy your fall. We are adjourned.
Good meeting, Jeff.
Oh, 1 minute.